Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with a retired medical doctor, author, and promoter of health, Donna Chacko. Decades of practicing medicine taught her about life and health. Also, living in a difficult marriage led her to despair, to God, and helped her grow. All of that combined sparked her book called Pilgrimage, A Doctor's Healing Journey. It also spurned her to create her ministry, Serenity and Health. Originally from Portland and now in Maryland, she talks about her geographical journey and so much more. Enjoy this interview.
Donna, thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Well, I thought it sounded like it's going to be fun. I was looking at your stuff. This will be a different flavor for me.
Yeah, and before we get into it, before we get into your life and your history, I think addressing the elephant in the room, which has been COVID, and I'm curious, in your line of work, you seem like you're a very busy person. How did you get through COVID, and how did it change you now that the world's kind of opening up?
Well, I was retired from clinical medicine when COVID came, and so for me, the shutdown was helpful because I could finally finish my book. I mean, I could really dive in and work on it. So from a personal point of view, I felt very blessed, and I'm married. My husband was able to work from home. So, it's been a tragedy to watch what's happened in the country, and especially how it's divided us, which is nuts. So yes, but that's how it hit me personally.
So I know you're retired, but and you're an author, but if you were in front of a bunch of grade school kids and you were at career day and they wanted to know, what do you do now? Or what was your career before, more specifically? And how were you qualified to do that? How would you answer those kids?
Well, I would tell them that I was a doctor for years and years and years, and I loved it and considered it such a great privilege, to have people come to me and share their stories and their bodies in a way and trust me. And it's just a great honor and a wonderful profession. And, it's also a profession that for a kid, they don't fully understand, but it can take you in so many directions, not just medical specialties, but public health or research or public education through writing, like medical journalists, and just trying to get the word out about whatever is important to you. If you have that background, then you're in a much more powerful position to make a difference.
Well, during the pandemic, for all of the lives that were lost and all of the woe that we heard about, doctors saved thousands and thousands of lives, and eventually science and medicine will hopefully save millions of people because of the vaccines and everything that we have now. Right.
I mean, I was proud of my profession and the nurses and doctors on the front line, and I didn't face that because, as I said, I was at that time working from home more as a writer and doing my other things. But wow, yeah, I'm very proud of my profession and what they went through. A lot of brave people is what I saw. Not just professionals, but all the people that were on the front line, getting us through this.
Absolutely. Let's go back in your life. Where are you located right now?
I live in Maryland, right near Washington, D.C.
Okay, is that where you're originally from?
No, I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and lived there for 20 years, and then moved around with training and whatnot, and then basically spent most 20 years in Tampa Bay, where my heart is just broken right now watching the news about the Gulf Coast of Florida. I mean, it's funny. That's where I lived and worked and did a lot of my radiation oncology. That's where we had our family. So, I mean, that's home. And when we were living there, came there ignorant of hurricanes. I mean, soon after we lived there, a storm came and we didn't know anything. We didn't know about evacuations or what flood level we were at. And we had to evacuate in the middle of the night. I mean, we had little tiny kids, and we heard these bullhorns in the middle of the night telling us we had to evacuate. And it's like, what? And we did. We went to we didn't even know how to go where we were going. But the point being is this is a big deal. And what I find is I didn't even realize we had to evacuate more than once during 20 years. And when I watch the news, I mean, it makes me think about the science and the PTSD and the trauma and stuff, because I get really emotional just thinking about all that and what those people are going through now.
Yeah, a lot of people ask us here in the Midwest about tornadoes and all of that. I think about, with those major Mother Nature disturbances that come through, it's wild,
Yeah.
Because a lot of the tornadic activity is, it has the same level of winds and kind of circulation and all of that. It just, the architecture of it's different because of the water and the dryness. But, it's the same kind of things. I remember when I was a kid, my grade school got hit. We evacuated, and still to this day, when the sirens go, we go downstairs. So, it's crazy how it works.
Yeah, it is.
And I know that I know it's rather trivial, but I didn't realize until last Sunday that Kansas City is supposed to play Tampa this Sunday, and it's going to be kind of a rematch of the Super Bowl, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. I know that our stadium's open if it was to be relocated, but I don't even know what any of that's going to happen, because everybody was kind of trying to figure out what category this was going to be and how devastating it was going to
right.
be.
I'd be surprised from what I'd be surprised if it happens in Tampa this weekend. Their water, the roads, the bridges, everything is just barely above the water.
Yeah.
Above the sea level.
Well, and the intensity of it is been ratcheted up to a level that, they say it's just a click below Category 5, and that's not anything that you want to see. So, So let's go back.
Anyway, I got sidetracked there, right? With storms.
That's okay.
Anyway.
That's okay. I mean, because that's kind of what I'm aiming at here is a level of geography and where you've been and all of that. That's totally a part of the conversation. So talk to me a little bit about your childhood and growing up. And you're obviously a highly motivated person getting into medicine, and now as an author. How did these seeds begin for you? What was your dream growing up to be when you grew up?
Oh, such a good place to go. Well, I have a twin brother and an older brother, and we grew up in Portland, Oregon, and middle class family. My father worked in a factory as a printer, but it was right after the war. He came home from the war, and we were early baby boomers. And my parents had the work ethic of people who had been through the Depression and the war. And that's what my brothers and I learned. And that was ingrained very deeply, not like go get rich and famous and make money, but just do your work, do it well, clean up your messes, put your tools away, fix something if it breaks, and that work ethic, I never realized until years later, was ingrained so deeply that it was an imprint that it was hard for me to go against, even when I created difficulties for myself, for my children, for my family, by working. It was just like I still have to work at relaxing or slowing down, even though I'm officially retired. That's just my default, is to work or do something. And it gives a lot of rewards, You learn things, you do well in school, you advance, you can make a good income especially if that's your priority. I wouldn't have gotten through medical school without it. But I've realized now that the problem is if these imprints from childhood, like for some it's perfectionism, for some it's looking beautiful, for some it's making money so that you can be totally secure. Whatever it is, if you get just stay so busy trying to stay on that treadmill, you don't realize that you're not really making intentional decisions. You're just kind of on autopilot. like I never understood that till a long time. So it was, like many traits, like busyness, like even perfectionism, trying to do things right. These are all good traits. It's just they all have to be balanced. So anyway, that's what I learned. That's what I learned growing up.
Well, it's interesting because you're talking to a busybody that happens to be a Libra, so I get that in a way that's, very, very deep within me. And, I think, and I'm going to be 50 here soon, and I'm thinking about, going into that next half of my life. And I think it's really hard for human beings to be conditioned to work every day and to be busy and to raise families and to do all of these things. And then it's like, all right, you're fine. It's over with. Now you can just kind of do whatever you want to do. It's a massive adjustment, and it's something that's hard for a lot of people. I think for some people it's very easy to do. I think that they already kind of lived that life where they loathed working, and once they were done, it was over with. But if you really did enjoy your occupation and what you did, it's hard to just say, hey, I have to pull all the tent poles up and call it quits. You got to find a way to satiate that id, ego, and superego that exists within us all the time.
Right, exactly. Well, yes, it certainly helps if you have a purpose and something motivating you where you can redirect your energies.
Well, and I guess a part of that for you is writing. I mean, that's really, I would think that would be not only something that would be a vocation, but it would be cathartic to do something like that.
Yes. I never thought I would be a writer. I mean, this is the first thing I've written, my book, and it's been so satisfying to see that it won awards because it was extremely challenging to put it together, But I would say that my redirection was more when I retired from day-to-day practicing of medicine. My redirection was more how to take what I had learned about health and understood it more broadly, and how I integrated that for myself and how and others, to integrate that with my faith journey and somehow package that in a way that would help people. So that was kind of what I tried to do after I retired, and I started something called Serenity and Health and did programs at my church. And all of those things were the seeds for my book as another method of getting my message out. But wow, writing a book was really something. I didn't know what I was getting into at all.
Yeah.
Not just first of all, figuring out what I was going to write, because though it started as a self-help book, it ended up to be a memoir, a very deep, revealing memoir about my life and me figuring out who I was and why I had done some of the things I had done, and emphasizing and concentrating a lot on a long, very difficult marriage. And so, yes, I learned a lot about myself, and hopefully the end result will help other people. I'm very glad that I did it.
So, the one thing that sustains and maintains us are those that we admire, role models, heroes in our lives. Who have those been for you?
Well, I guess I would say more the few authors through the years that influenced me. I don't have like a living mentor. I haven't worked, so I don't have somebody like that I can say that would be lovely, but I don't have that. So when I look back, the book that most influenced me as I was kind of starting to get off my treadmill and try and figure out life was Scott Peck's book, The Road Less Traveled, which is a very old book written, I believe, in the 60s or 70s. But I recommend that book for anyone to try and understand, who we are and why we do what we do and how to do it better. I've read that book many times. It's probably the only book I have read that many times. So I know he's deceased, but it just, the power of words, even if it's written by someone who's no longer living, is just really tremendous. And I get a lot of sustenance from just close friends that help me along. You know, people are so wonderful to close friends, new friends, like in the writing community, for example. People are very helpful and share and guide and encourage. It's been wonderful.
What has been the best fan letter or response you've gotten from your book?
Yeah. From the stuff that I talk about, when somebody tells me that by reading what I've written or said, that they changed their life and started, I'm specifically thinking of one person with trying to slow down her mind, trying to understand mindfulness, and I talk about something called a God-centered mindfulness, like praying in the day, trying to just ratchet down the activity in the brain using meditative prayer for that purpose, and realizing that by doing all those things now, she is in a much more peaceful place. And that's pretty amazing to me, to think that something that I wrote or did might have helped somebody to just be able to be happier and more peaceful. I'm sure that translates to better health, translates probably to a better relationship with God and others. So that's a lot of gain. That's pretty thrilling.
So as a writer, when you think back to your life about really the moment that you found that joy of reading, a book that you loved, the first one that parted the curtains for you, what was that book?
The two books I remember from childhood that I just have stuck with me, and I kind of remember little phrases of them, are The Secret Garden and Heidi, interestingly enough. And it was such a thrill to be able to read those books to my grandkids. You know? Do you know the book Heidi?
Yes, I do.
Well, do you know that there was a real person, Heidi?
No.
Yes, it's based on a true story. My daughter moved to Europe and for a while lived in Switzerland, and they sell milk. It's called Heidi. That's the name of the milk. And I researched it over there, and yeah, she lived over there. Yeah, she's an old lady, and it's based on a true story. Anyway, and so there wasn't, those stories weren't like inspirational exactly, but just the power of the story and the power of words to transport us to good places, happy places, higher places. That's one thing about trying to write a book or writing a book. It just made me even value more, the talent of a really good writer, or the beauty of words. It's like an art to be able to take this. We all have the same alphabet and the same potential words, but some of these authors, just in the way they phrase a description, it impresses me.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet today, talk to them for a few minutes, just meet them, who would it be? Who would you love to meet?
Well, I think because I've been increasingly interested in the Civil War and trying to think about a lot of the race issues that we deal with now and trying to understand how this all came about, I think it would be pretty incredible to meet with Abraham Lincoln and try and understand what that man carried for those years, what he went through. What a time for our country.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your readers, colleagues. But you have a perception of you. You have an idea of who you are. Who do you think you are?
Well, that's interesting. Well, I think that I'm a curious person who is interested in a lot of things and probably talks a little too much, thinks a little too much, worries a little too much, tries to do the right thing, messes up a lot, and hopefully, especially as I've matured, is more able to just accept gracefully all those mess-ups and my failings of myself and others. So that's kind of a hodgepodge. But that's how I see it.
Yeah, there's no right answer. That's great. And that's what it is. We are, I think at the end of the day, we are all hodgepodges. So your book, Pilgrimage, A Doctor's Healing Journey, where can anyone out there pick up your book, learn more about you, anything related to you out on the web?
Okay, yes, please. Yes, I would encourage anybody listening to look at my stuff, particularly if you're not quite happy with where you are in life. If you don't feel very well, or you're irritable, have insomnia, just have crummy habits and can't quite get motivated, the things you want to change but haven't. That's the direction I go, especially for people who have a faith and can see the links between their health and their faith. So with that preamble, my book is Pilgrimage, A Doctor's Healing Journey, and it's available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I write a blog and have some programs available on my website, which is serenityandhealth.com, 3 words. And if you sign up for my monthly blog, I'll send you 3 keys to a holy, happy, and healthy life, which we all cherish, right?
Absolutely. There is one last question before you go that I'm curious about, and I was thinking about, if you have a dream tonight and your younger version of you, around your 20s, is there in your dream, and you could give them a piece of advice based on what you've learned over the years, and this isn't about regret, it's about accumulating wisdom, what would you take that minute out to say to your younger version?
Oh, I've thought about this because, you try and learn, right? I clearly know what it would be. It would be that, Donna, you need to take some time, you need to prioritize some time every day for quiet, for reflection, for thinking about your life, for prayer. Because if you don't, you're just going to be on this treadmill automatic pilot reacting to life instead of, intentionally planning it and taking the steps that you want to take. I think that's my number one advice I would have given myself.
Wonderful. Donna, thank you for taking time out today. Thank you for opening up. I appreciate it. Good luck with the book and good luck with all the future ventures.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure talking with you, Joe.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, and music around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.